Once upon a time, there was a king whose reputation for vanity and arrogance preceded him. Every morning he'd dress in brand new clothes, which were specially made for him, and he would parade around the palace, where his staff were forced to compliment him. One day he was visited by two men. Having heard of the emperor's taste for the finest of tailoring, they offered to make the king the most exquisite of gowns the monarch had ever seen, and made from the rarest of rare materials. The king's ears pricked up. "What makes it so rare?" he said. "Why, this fabric is so special that fools cannot wear it," one tailor said. "Wear it? They can't even see it," the other tailor added. The thought of having such an exclusive fabric cut and stitched especially for him is the dream of many an emperor, but he knew such luxuries come at a high price. He asked the men what they wanted in trade for the garment. "We want nothing, sire," the men said. "We will make it for free. Just provide our meals, and let us stay in this palace until it is done." The king, seeing a bargain, agreed to the gentleman's terms and put them to work. They moved into the parlour and demanded not to be disturbed. The tailors were not seen for weeks, apart from meal times, when they would feast upon the king's food. They insisted that it was necessary for them to keep their strength up if they were to continue with the Herculean workload. Yet whenever the door to the parlour was passed, no work could be heard. The weeks of wait turned into months, and with the exception of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the tailors were not seen. Until one day, the king, who could wait no longer, demanded that the garment be finished, and finished today. "What a coincidence," the tailors said. "We have just finished right now. Oh, come, see." They guided the monarch to an empty coat hanger and waited for his reaction. "Where is it?" the king said. "Why, it is on the hanger, sire," one man said. "Don't you love it so?" said the other. The men explained their workmanship, their choice of cut, and how the seams are all double-stitched, but the king could see nothing on the rack in front of him. "Such a wonderful colour, isn't it? I like how it complements your eyes," said one man. "It's almost a shame fools won't be able to see it," said the other. "Ah, yes," said the king, reminded of the tailor's original brief. "It is wonderful," he bluffed. Then stripped to his birthday suit and insisted on getting changed right away. The gentlemen helped their king into the gown, complimenting him the entire way. "This is the finest gown this kingdom has ever seen," the king said, and insisted he took to the streets so his subjects could see it in all its glory. The crowds gathered as the monarch walked through the town. "Look how envious the townspeople are of my new attire," he thought, and began to skip and sing. The audience were silent apart from a single child's voice. "Mummy, why is he naked?" it asked. The king turned to the child and barked, "Fool!" "Does he not know he's naked?" another voice remarked. I am not naked, said the king. You are the fools. The crowd began to giggle, and the king felt the cold of the wind blowing around him. It seems, on this occasion, that he was the fool. His face became flush. He wanted to cover up, but having nothing to but his hands, he stuck his chin in the air and said, "You people know nothing about fashion," and marched back into the castle, exposed. And there he stayed for the rest of his reign.
Donnie Darko. I had the luxury of seeing this movie without the hype. The fact is, when it came out in the theaters, it didn't have any hype. It had a limited run. It was barely advertised. Most people never heard of it until it came out on video. And I was among the first generation to discover it. I found it purely on my own. I was in the video store. I saw the VHS box with that weird, creepy rabbit on the cover, and I thought it must be some shitty horror movie. And sometimes I like watching garbage. So that was what I was in the mood for. I took it home, I watched it, and it was not what I expected at all.
My experience of watching Donnie Darko for the first time mirrors that of the angry video game nerd, James Rolfe. And I had a very similar reaction.
I had no idea what I was watching. It didn't make any sense, so I moved on and forgot about it. Then one of my classmates at the university said, "Hey, I saw this movie, Donnie Darko. It's really awesome." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then I start hearing about it more, like this movie's going around word of mouth. So I think, well, maybe I was in the wrong mood. So I watch it again, and still, it sucks. What am I missing here?
It is my hypothesis that Donnie Darko does not work as a story, and no one wishes to admit it through fear of looking foolish.
He asked me to forcibly insert the lifeline exercise card into my anus!
The most common response when you tell a Darko fan that you don't like Donnie Darko is, you don't like it because you don't understand it. And then they point you in the direction of a myriad of videos on YouTube which profess to explain the movie. None of these videos are consistent in their interpretation of the movie, which goes to show that they're bringing their meaning to the movie rather than the film standing on its own merit. This video, by the channel called London City Girl, has over 350,000 views, and is not even an interpretation of the movie.
In the film, Donnie is given a book by his science teacher, The Philosophy of Time Travel, and it is this in-movie fictional book that is the key to understanding the film. In the director's cut of the film, which was released in 2004, excerpts from the book were included on screen, making it much easier for fans to follow both the plot and the themes explored. The clarity that was arguably missing from the original is present in the longer version of the film. In addition, the full pages were made available on the film's website, as well as being included as an extra feature in the DVD release.
The video essayist is using a different cut of the movie to explain what most would call a plot hole in the theatrical cut. This doesn't seem fair to me. Let's take a totally different film to illustrate my point. The theatrical cut of the 2016 remake of Ghostbusters was not well regarded at the time of release. My biggest problem being there's a hell of a lot of setup with little payoff. For example, the scenes where the soldiers are being controlled by the movie's antagonists were clearly setting up to a dance sequence which never came. When the film was later released on Blu-ray, these scenes were reinstated, making the film make more sense. But if I were to complain that the theatrical cut was disjointed, to tell me I had to watch the movie a second time in a different edit would not change my criticism of the initial viewers.
You can't just lump things into two categories. Things aren't that simple.
The lifeline is divided that way.
Well, life isn't that simple.
More about the director's cut later. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm against a movie being ambiguous, or even cryptic. What I am against is having to do extra research. If I have to go to a website to get all the pieces of the jigsaw, then it's not a functioning film. The movie starts with a BBFC or MPAA rating, and it ends with the end credits, or that little scene after the end credits if you're a Marvel fan. If I'd made an adaptation of a novel, which only makes sense if one had read the source material, then I haven't done a very good job at adapting it.
The film itself, it's a real treasure trove for people who love to find a film where they can untangle the plot and find hidden meanings. And there's websites dedicated to saying what is Donnie Darko really about. So for you, I mean, what is Donnie Darko about for you? Is there a central thing?
The film is about life, It's about the complexity of life. It's about a boy becoming a man. It's about a man confronting himself. It's about the death of the Reagan era. Yeah, it's about a whole lot of things. But part of what's essential for me is it's not about any one thing, right? It's about a broad spectrum of the human experience. And it can't just be reduced to a single explanation. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that you can continually get lost in it and try to navigate your way through the story again and again and again, and hopefully see something new every single time.
It's interesting that in this awkward and rambling interview with the director, Richard Kelly, that when he's asked what the film is about, he doesn't say time or interdimensional travel, nor does he talk of any of the science or philosophy of the movie, which the YouTube analysis videos lean on heavily.
Well, that's what's great about Donnie, him laughing in bed, is he knows. He gives that, he gets, I mean, this is a crazy theory, but that he gets that gift of, like, you know, maybe in the moments before death you get to see your whole life, or you get to see the results of what you did. Maybe that's the gift, or, you know, I mean, because you don't really, I feel like sometimes you don't really know the effects you have.
No, I don't think you know, really. I mean, you may have the effects that you think about, the effects that you want to have, but do you know whether that's?
I don't know.
I think he knows. I think he knows.
Maybe his sacrifice is allowing him to know
that in
his
that
effects.
moment when he smiles and that he knows.
Yeah.
This is a clip from the Roundtable DVD commentary, where most of the cast reveal that while they love the film, none of them really understand it, and sometimes don't even understand the scenes that they're in.
And that's what's interesting. I wonder if you agree or disagree with that, and why your film is so amazing, because you have people that have their theories.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're all right, and I think that, you know, ultimately...
How tactful.
Tactful is not a word I would have used. Here's another clip from the same commentary about the writing of the script.
Well, I think you know, the script was written as like stream of consciousness. Like, whoa, what is, like, even when I finished writing, I'm like, what the hell is this? And I gave it to Sean, and I said, what the hell is this?
But I love it.
And then thought about it.
But I believe.
We were able to kind of connect the logic together, and it's like, you know, everyone probably had the same, I don't know what everyone's reaction was to initially reading it. Probably everyone had a different reaction, but it's like, it's almost like there is a through line and a point behind everything. And I think we were really careful just in every process of making it, that it was all about economy. If you're going to have something there, make it be there for a reason. Otherwise, it doesn't need to be there. And it does follow this weird logic that kind of has its own rules, I guess.
I put it to you that no one will ever fully understand Donnie Darko, as not even Richard Kelly understands it himself. Kevin Smith starred in his following film, Southland Tales, and this is what he had to say about the matter.
Southland Tales is a movie Richard Kelly's doing. For those of you who don't know, Richard Kelly is a guy who directed Donnie Darko. He's the most normal guy you'll sit there and talk to. He's a dude from Virginia and shit, real straight-laced, good guy. Talk movies and shit, but like then you see Donnie Darko and you're like, credits roll and you're like, what the fuck happened? What happened in that movie? And I ask him, and he still can't fucking explain it. Southland Tales you can understand. It kind of like, it makes sense. But Donnie Darko still to this day is fucking mystifying. I don't even think he knows what it fucking means. I think he just shot a bunch of shit, threw it in the air, taped it back together and said, here it is.
Occam's razor is the principle of philosophical parsimony. Put as simply as possible, which was always Occam's wont, the most simple of answers is most likely to be true. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a riddle.
A riddle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What can you sit on, sleep on, and brush your teeth with? What can you sit on, sleep on, and brush your teeth with? Sit on, sleep on, and brush your teeth with.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
Sit on, sleep on, and brush your teeth with.
You don't want to guess?
Wait. Sit on what? Sleep on, brush your teeth with.
A guess. No.
No, I don't know.
A chair, a bed, and a toothbrush. A chair, a bed, and a toothbrush. A chair, a bed, and a toothbrush.
Okay, alright. You want the easy answer?
Not funny.
The human mind works in narrative, so when you give the piece of a puzzle to a person, their mind automatically tries to connect them. In that riddle, I didn't ask anybody for a single item, but they automatically thought, no, that's too simple, and they tried to connect them together. This is not a bug, it's a feature of being human. For example, if I were to show you this and say, what am I covering up? Most people would say the word science. But the truth is, it's just a bunch of squiggles.
I know people like that it doesn't make sense, that you could interpret it different ways. People like to analyze it. But no matter how many times I hear it explained, I just think, yeah. And why does that make it so great?
The theatrical cut was largely ignored on its original cinema release, but went on to find its audience on home video, possibly because people were renting it over and over in order to figure it out. Because of the second wave in popularity, a director's cut was released in 2004.
I mean, you'll find that wait till you do Southland Tales and the cult of Donnie Darko, comes after you for not making Donnie Darko again.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of what my hope was in doing this director's cut. I thought maybe they would ask me to do this in 10 years. We had a pretty extraordinary amount of deleted material in this film, and Newmarket came to me and said, we'd like to put this back out into theaters, and but he thought of doing a director's cut, and I was like, well, yeah, man, I guess we're doing this now. My intention was to not nullify or discount the theatrical cut at all, because I'm still very proud of it. But for there to be two versions of this film that exist, and this new version can be like the remix version.
Richard Kelly actually had director's cut on the theatrical release, but was forced to compromise his vision in order to fit the contractually obliged running time. This would be better described as an extended edition. So given the opportunity to flesh out the movie, did Richard Kelly add anything about the complexity of life, or about a boy confronting himself, or about the death of the Reagan era that apparently this film is about? No, he added 20 minutes to explain the time travel element.
Blood on your neck.
I have to admit it, the time loop business does make more sense in this version, but it's far from elegantly executed, with excerpts of the philosophy of time travel literally appearing on screen. I cannot believe that something so clunky would be a part of Richard Kelly's original cinematic vision, and not a reaction to the criticism regarding the film's coherence. The director's cut is generally held in lower regard than that of the theatrical release. It's my belief that the general viewer enjoyed filling in those gaps in the narrative with their own ideas, so much so that when they were filled by somebody else, the director, using text-on-screen explanations, and when those explanations didn't match what the viewer had come to by themselves, they were miffed. It's like a child who is trying to figure out how Santa's reindeer are able to fly, and all by themselves they've come to the conclusion that it's magic. And then imagine that same child meeting the head elf, and that elf says, oh no, there's no magic in it. We feed the reindeers gunpowder. That child has every right to say, I don't like that explanation. I prefer my idea. And watching the theatrical cut means you can have your time travel cake and eat it. But watching the director's cut means you have to take the director's explanation. You've made an ambiguous film and then you've explained it.
So when you say it's an artifact, is it an artifact from the tangential universe?
I think so. I think the way I look at it is like a tree. Mm-hmm. That the primary universe is the trunk of the tree, mm-hmm. and the tangent universe is like a branch.
Right.
And when you see the first chapter card here coming up, and here's Noah Wiley, giving him the book for the first time in this scene, is we put a graphic of a tree there, and I think the idea is that the branch eventually deviates so far away from the trunk mm-hmm. that eventually it's gonna peter out to an end and then snap off, and that's. And so somehow they've got to hurl this jet engine back to the trunk.
Right.
But I think the idea is that a duplicate version of that jet engine somehow appears, and like you said, your Earth 2 theory, mm-hmm. that there are duplicate versions of maybe each human being that exists in the branch, and even like when Doc is talking to Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2, and he's drawing that diagram, the timeline diagram. You get into some some brain teaser territory there where, you know, the idea of a fourth dimension, I don't think that any human brain could ever comprehend what the fourth dimension really is, and that's where you get into the God machine kind of thing. With the director's cut, what I'm putting out there is that if these people of Middlesex succeed in sending that jet engine back and helping this kid and his superpowers send this jet engine back, that they've proved something, that they've contacted something. They've contacted a divine higher power or something. And
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Keep that one to yourself. I like the more simple version where it's just Donnie saves the universe.
He saves the universe.
All the people, all the townspeople helping. No, I don't go in for that.
You don't go in
those
for
shenanigans. No, those backdoor shenanigans. Heavens no.
This strikes me of someone desperately trying to reverse engineer explanations to that which cannot be explained through fear of being caught out. No, because what you don't know is I've come up with this whole new alphabet, and these symbols, when they're together, they have a different meaning. When you put these together, they have a different meaning than they do individually. It's and when you decipher this, if you go to my website, you'll find the decoder of this, and when you read this, it says science. So I am very clever.
You can go suck a fuck.
Oh, please tell me, Elizabeth, how exactly does one suck a fuck?
You want me to tell you?
Please tell me.
We will not have this at the dinner table.
So yes, I find the theatrical cut lacking in explanation, and the director's cut's explanations to be lacking. This film seems to be designed for the faux intellectual to pontificate about incorrectly. It reminds me of the Lindsay Anderson film, If, which is a masterpiece of British cinema, but the movie flicks from black and white to colour, almost at random, and a lot's been made about the meaning of these transitions, how it creates a dreamlike state, and how the viewer is not aware of what is real and what is imagined. But the truth is, the production ran out of film and couldn't afford to buy more colour stock, so they bought black and white.
Donnie Darko.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree with me, and they've probably already called me a prick in the comments below. If you happen to enjoy this film, then that's fair enough, but I'm not sure why you'd sit through a video like this. But then again, people do funny things online. And to prove that, I'm going to sing a few of Donnie Darko's praises. Firstly, its depiction of teenage angst is very well done. Were people to list that as their reason for liking the movie, then I would have no issue. Secondly, it introduced me to Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal, two really great actors who have proved their chops over and over again. And lastly, the soundtrack is great. But alas, I am not committed to Sparkle Motion.
Sometimes I doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion.
It's a surprising thing to say after its initial flop, but this film's biggest downfall is its own overpraise. If they could have somehow left this film to be discovered quietly by the viewer, then one's expectations would have remained achievably low. Instead, we have a film which is touted as being an enigma, but an enigma which the director seems keen to explain, yet still wishes it to be all things to all men. I'm afraid someone has to say it. The Emperor is naked, and his balls are starting to shrivel in the breeze. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.